Hey, what's up guys? I'm Justin Davis. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about some micros. I'm going to give you a little bit of micro brushless history here. We started out years ago not flying brushless on these little micro quads, little micro whoops, and little FPV rigs that were sub 250 grams, even sub 100 grams. This was an original brushed Cheerson that I modded with the micro Frsky on here. I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen a micro Frsky before, but there it is, F3 flight controller with brushed motor, ESC, and everything all on one board. So this is a really early version of a micro brushed quad. So we've come a long ways in 3 to 4 years. I was building these and making build videos on these years ago, but now we've come past the evolution also of these little tiny whoops that we've been flying indoors, and these are also brushed motors. And now we're coming up to the Beta FPV series of quads. We're at the point in 2019 where this is a nice new version. I like it a lot better. It does still have a little bit of washout in some of the big maneuvers, but I have to say that it flies way better. I'm happy that this is where it is, and I gotta say a thanks out to Nate Payne for inspiring this to Beta FPV. He's been working with them also behind the scenes and testing out a lot of their frames and flying a lot of their frames. I keep stacks of their frames around, and I have actually I've asked that you guys buy these frames and take your Mobula 7 and put them on these frames because they're a lot more durable than some of the Happy Model and the eSheen frames out there. So whenever I want to do a build, I can pull one of these out, put whatever custom combos on it that I want. But the cool thing about this is that 3 years ago, around 2 to 3 years ago, the Mantis came out, and also the Awesome 85 and the Awesome 100. I don't know if you guys remember the Awesome series, but they had 1103 motors on there. They were not whoops, and they flew like little animals on 2S. I absolutely love those. They're rippers. But where we're at now is we have a really nice flying whoop style frame that you can pretty much fly anywhere. You can fly this out in the park. You can fly it in a playground as long as there's no families or kids there. And you can bang this one around pretty good. One of my first experiences with Beta FPV was really, really bad because I took it out in the backyard, and about 30 seconds into my flight, it broke on me. And I know there's been a lot of QC issues with Beta FPV in the past year, but I think they're trying to work past some of those things. The 85X 4K that I just reviewed a while back, that one is a pretty good release from them, and I think this is probably going to be one of their best releases so far this summer. So I'm happy to review this one. We're going to put this one out in the field right now. We're going to do a spec check on it. I'm going to show you the 1103 motors and all the gear that they put on here. After that, we'll do a little bit of flying with it, and I come back into the studio and we'll give you my final opinion. Let's go outside, do a little bit of spec check and some FPV. Here we go. All right, today we're going to run a 2S battery. We're going to try out the 300 and the 450s at the biggest. It also has a combo ESC and flight controller on here. It is an F4 flight controller, and it has that classic 85mm Beta FPV 85X frame. It's super durable frame. And we have 2-inch Avant props. Those are push on, no bolts needed, which is kind of nice. 1103, 10,000 kV, super hopped up motors. And what's really great about this, 200 milliwatt VTX. We have smart audio on board and an AIO camera. Also, the strap is there, thank God, the battery strap instead of that stupid battery box. And we have 2 bolts on each motor here, front and back. So not a lot of bolts. I'd recommend tiny little bit of Loctite on the tip of the bolt there. And we have a USB port for Betaflight right there. Make sure you're using a data cable to be able to connect. And we have plug and play motors, which is super sweet. So if you have a motor go out, you can just plug in a new one. No soldering needed there. And look, just under here in the front, you'll see the bind and the boot button right there for binding up in D16 mode with your TARANIS. And no battery cage this time. Thank God there's no battery cage. They used a strap this time. So what's in the box, you guys? You get a 2S 300 milliamp battery, and that should get you about 2.5 to 3 minutes flight time. You get a Beta FPV support card, and you get another camera mount, which is super nice to have that. A pretty good value. I'm pretty happy that it actually comes with a battery. Most of them don't these days. So pretty good looking quad. Let's go ahead now and do some FPV, and I'll show you how it rips. Here we go. So here we go. Let's do some flying, and let's be honest about the flight characteristics of this quad. This is a little power loop back over this deck right here and back under. A little bit of shutter there. And back out in the field for another test for the power loop. Seemed to do fine. The flip and roll rate seemed to be pretty good. It was really responsive and really snappy. I can do a lot of maneuvers with this quad that I'm not been able to do before. So power loop through the legs, for example. If you ever done one of those, yeah, check that out. Up, over my head, back down, and back through my legs. So it has a really good control. So the power's there for boosting back over objects and little trees. This dude was interested in FPV, so I was telling him all the basics. People ask the same questions all the time. Does it have a camera on it? What's it like to fly it? Sitting in the cockpit, etc. So he was super stoked on it, and he's probably going to go look for one on the internet. But I told him to check out FPV on YouTube because there's a ton of videos out there. And this one is really so small that I can fly it around the both of us and really not worry too much about bumping into one of us. You know, it's a very, very light quad, so right around 45 grams. You're probably looking at around 75 grams with the battery on there, so yeah, it's not going to hurt you. But the cool thing is also that there's some parents over behind me with kids at the playground, and I can just go rip around out here in this big field, and he wanted to know what kind of range it had, so I just put it up there and showed him how high up I can get it. I did test out the range, and I think it's just over a football field before this SPI style receiver. It's built into the flight controller, so the SPI RX is limited in the range, so it's not going to give you as much range as something like an XM Plus. If you want a little further range, you're going to have to hook up the XM Plus. Then you should get at least 2 football fields, maybe more. But right there is not bad. Coming back around, plenty of control. And if you had an XM Plus on here, you could have some fun with it because this does have 200 milliwatt transmitter, and a lot of people want 200 milliwatt on a Whoop. 25 is just a little bit annoying to be stuck to 25 milliwatts, so he's still kind of checking out my Whoop. Thinks it's pretty cool. It is fun and easy to fly, especially if you're a new guy just getting into this. You can practice your orbits, you can practice all those hard maneuvers that you normally wouldn't want to do with a 5-inch out in the park setting. You can practice those power loops, fly through gaps, up over light poles and things like that, back down and around through these trees. Really have a lot of fun. And if you want to fly it on stability mode indoors, you could rip with this indoors and make some cool videos. And durability check, light pole. We're going to hit that light pole right now. Yeah, I was stoked to make that back out of that. Now back through the plants there, another punch out. It's a pretty good punch out, right? I think the punch out's pretty good. A little bit of stall inverted there, let it drop to the ground, and it recovered. No washout on that, which was kind of amazing. Now some low to the ground tracking around this tree. It's pretty fast with these 1103 motors. It is really fast. This is about as much fun as you could have on 2S. This is the whole point of this quad, is that it's safe, it's quiet, and it actually does rip on 2S. So I wish I had like 15 or 20 batteries for this quad. And that was a fun stall out. Punch out. I see a little bit of jello there, a little bit of vibes in the tune, but this is a stock tune from Beta FPV. Looking pretty good there. And if you want to go back down from Betaflight 4.0, I did that as well. So I tested out both. I had a lot of fun with this one. Alright guys, welcome back to the studio. I gotta say, I think this is something that is where it needs to be, because this can appeal to the new guy just getting into FPV. They can bang this around and they can go full throttle way up in the air, 100 feet up, and come back down. It has a pretty good range on here with smart audio. We've got great brushless 1103 motors on here, just about a 10-to-1 power ratio. It's crazy. The throttle is awesome. You have sort of a solderless design, and we talk about solderless before on the channel, and that's where you can just do plug and play swappable motors on the bottom. If I've showed you that before in the spec check, but everything is plug and play on here, so no soldering required, which is great. Even the AIO camera plugs in on the board up here. So for beginners, this is nice. You can take a screwdriver and take this whole thing, slam apart. It's all little tiny Phillips head screws on here. You don't even need any regular drivers to work on this. So that's kind of nice that you don't have to have a set of drivers. And I like this, that the props come on and off by hand. So Full Speed a while back released, I believe it was the original toothpick, and I cut my fingers trying to get those props off because they were stuck on those 1.5 millimeter shafts so hard I couldn't move them. So there is a little bit of play in these props, but they will not come off. You don't need bolts on them. If you put bolts on them, it might add extra jello into your camera. So I'm going to recommend that you just fly them without the bolts. But I gotta say, this is definitely looking like about, I'm going to give it a star rating now. Performance wise, I gotta say 4.5 stars for the performance. It could be a little bit better. There is a little bit of washout, but for the most part, it rips. I would pay $100 for this right now versus the original one. This one is the jam. So as far as durability goes, we're going to give it a 4.7 out of 5 stars, and the overall rating, I'm going to give this one around a 4.7 because I had fun with this one. I honestly did. I took this one out. I flew the crap out of it. I didn't hold back on this one at all. I went full throttle on this. I did see a tiny bit of jello even in the tune that I have on here, but that's about as good as I could get it. And I actually went back off of Betaflight 4.0 that was on here. I flashed it back to a previous version underneath 4.0 because just much easier to tune and deal with. So I might recommend that you guys go back and do the same thing. But anyway, guys, thanks again for watching my reviews. I hope to see more quads of this stature coming out of Beta FPV. Good work, you guys. I'm Justin Davis. Take care, guys, and I'll see you on the next one.